everyone, it's Jo here from Time for Tea Designs with another card tutorial. Today's video features 3 cards, 2 that I made during our Facebook Live on Thursday evening, and then 1 that I made straight after we finished filming because I was on a bit of a roll. So there's a couple of pictures there that you can see of the cards that we're going to be discussing today. And the first of the cards that I'm going to be showing you is the one using the Scattered Hearts cover panel die and the Dream Big sentiment die. This was a card that I was intending to do on the Create and Craft show that we did when the release was launched the week before, so the previous Friday. And I didn't get a chance to do it because the show just went so fast and a lot of things sold out, so we just didn't get time to do this one. So I thought I would share it with you today. So I'm starting with some blue cardstock, and you can see there that I just deepened that blue with some of my chipped sapphire distress ink before cutting out that Scattered Hearts cover panel die with my die cutting machine. And this cuts out all of those little delicate scattered hearts that are all hand drawn and makes for a really, really pretty background. So to add a little bit of extra bling to the background panel, I'm just using some of my Fine Tech Gold metallic paints, and I'm just using my watercolour brush here just to sprinkle some of that all over the surface of my die cut. I've added plenty of water there, and I'm just adding a mixture of bigger splatters and smaller ones, and you can see the detail there, and when you see the pictures, the shimmer is just gorgeous. For the show, I'd already prepared my initial card base, and I'd layered up some of this lovely shiny gold metallic cardstock in the background, but I realised that I wanted a little bit of a layer with the white cardstock behind this die cut of Scattered Hearts. So I cut down a piece of white cardstock and just left a little tiny border all the way around the outside edge. This cover plate die is exactly the size of an A6 card base. So we're using a bespoke size card base today, but it will fit into a 5x7 envelope if that's what if you were wanting to send this in the post. So to add a little bit of a layer for my Dream Big sentiment, I'm using a piece of vellum, and I did have this little mouse image already coloured up and set to one side, and we all thought it was too good an opportunity to miss to pop her on the front of the card. So we will do that eventually, but I haven't shown how I've coloured her up because she was already coloured. The Dream Big sentiment die comes in 2 pieces, and you can see I've cut one out of white cardstock here, and then the other I've cut out of the gold cardstock. Each of those dies could be used independently of each other, but they look so good when they're layered up next to each other. So I'm just taking my piece of vellum now and just cutting that to size so that it was a little bit narrower and then reached across the full length of that gold piece of cardstock. And now I'm going to show you how these 2 die cuts layer up together. So I'm just applying a little bit of my liquid glue, just dotting that all the way around this white die cut here. And then I'm just going to pop that on top of the gold outer cut, and you can see how that makes for a really nice bold sentiment, and it's going to look great in the center of our card. So now we can start layering up some of our pieces, and I've dotted some of my liquid glue onto this cover panel die. So I've sped that up a little bit so you don't have to watch me do all of that, but I've made sure that I've got plenty of that glue all around the outside edges so that the panel die doesn't lift. And now I'm going to apply that panel onto our card base using some foam tape. So I'm just applying some strips of that all the way across the back so that that doesn't sag. And I'm going to use my poker tool here just to get the backing paper off those strips. And then we can add this to our already layered up card base. And this is going to be a top folding card. So that's created a bit of dimension for us. And now I'm going to attach my sentiment onto the vellum, and I'm going to use some liquid glue to do that. And what this will mean then is that once our sentiment is onto our vellum piece, then I can apply my adhesive to the back panel of the vellum, wherever that sentiment die is, and you won't see any of the adhesive, because that's one of the challenges when using vellum and sticking that to anything. So I'm just moving that up slightly because I do like to leave a larger portion of the card in the bottom half of the panel there, just for balance. I think that just means that it looks more evenly weighted, even though there is a larger portion in the bottom third of the card. Some foam tapes then on the back of our little mouse. I'll just add him to the bottom right hand corner, and then for balance I felt we needed some more decoration, and what I'd done previously was take a little bit of my gold cardstock, run that through the die cutting machine with the scattered hearts cover plate die, and now I've got all these gorgeous little heart pieces to use as embellishments. So I didn't use the full panel, I just used a little strip of the gold, and now I can use all these different sized hearts as little embellishments on different projects, and it worked perfectly to add a little bit of balance to our card today. And one of our viewers, Simon, just suggested that we add a little heart to the mouse's paws there for something for him to hold. But I just thought that worked out so well and was such a cute card to make. Really simple but really effective. So moving on to our second card that we did today, we did a little bit of watercolouring, which isn't something I always do. But what I'm using is some of this Clairefontaine paint on paper, or cardstock should I say. And I'm just showing here the difference between that and the colour of the paper to traditional watercolour paper. So we whizzed through that quite quickly, but this is much brighter white than you would normally get for watercolour paper, which is why I like to use this for card bases. So I've cut my first panel out using the Dotty Hearts cover plate die, which was from the previous release, and it's hard for you to see on camera here, but you will be able to see as we go on just how adding a little bit of watercolour to it really brings out those dotty hearts. So I'm trying to show you there those little hearts. You can just about see them on the video screen there. But in real life, they really pop and really show up when you add a bit of colour. So I'm thinking of a little rainbow theme to our colour palette, but I decided to stick to 4 primary colours in the end, so as not to create too much I suppose too much of a muddy mess. This isn't something that I do a lot, and I was experimenting, and I was really pleased with the results. But I've added my ink, just smushed that onto a large acrylic block that I had, sprayed on some water to let that Distress Oxide ink move a little bit, and then I've just rubbed my card panel over the top of it. Where it was a little bit starting to make a little bit of a muddy colour, I've just dotted that up with a baby wipe, and then I'm just adding a bit more water to pick up some extra bits of colour where I feel that I didn't have enough on my onto my background. And I really like how that's all merged together and created this really pretty background. Everything's run a little bit and it just makes for a really nice effect. But to add a little bit something extra, I'm using some of this Alt New iridescent shimmer spray, and I'm just using my splatter box, my homemade splatter box there, to spray some of that on top. And I've put that to one side, and I will show you later just how fabulous that shimmer does look. It's difficult to see on screen, I know. So we've now moving on to do our stamping. So I'm using my stamping platform here to stamp out 2 of the images from the Unicorn in Training stamp set. This is such a cute set, so many ideas to use with this, such a happy and positive set as well, with some really positive sentiments. And I'm just using a little bit of grey to add a little bit of shadow to the body of our unicorn. I want him to appear white, so I'm not adding an awful lot of colour to his body, but just enough to give him a little bit of dimension. So I've just used a couple of my cool greys there, and then for his muzzle and eventually for the for his unicorn horn, I've just added a little bit of a pale pink colour. So then I was trying to decide how I wanted to colour up his mane, and we decided in the end that doing a rainbow themed mane would be a really great thing to do. So I'm working my way through the rainbow of colours, and you can see on screen there the colours that I used. You can probably hear my cat crying in the background, so I'll just pause for a second and go and see to him. The joys of doing voiceover. So now we've sorted the cats out, we can go back to our colouring. And like I say, I'm using some rainbow shades here to work my way through the mane. So just making my own little stripes and adding the colours one by one. I'm not really thinking too much about how I do that. I'm not adding any real dimension or shading, just keeping it really simple. But I think it looks so cute once it's completed. For our rainbow, again, I've just selected 3 of the colours from our rainbow palette, and ones that I know will go with my background. So I picked out the red, the yellow and the green, and again, I've not added any other shading, just a little bit of BG10 over those clouds, just to add a little bit of shadow to those. I'm going to pop these through my die cutting machine with the coordinating dies and pop those little guys out, and they look so adorable. I love how they turned out, and they really do match really well with that background that we've made. So this is going to be a really fun rainbow card. So I had a little play with different backgrounds. I tried the black and I tried the pink. I didn't like either of those. So in the end, I thought, let's try making our own background card using a colour from my Distress Oxide ink palette, and one that would pull out one of the colours that we'd created in our rainbow background. And I really like the Twisted Citron against the rest of the colours that we've created there. I think it just looks really fresh, really bright, and really brings out the rest of the colours that are within that background that we've made. So I'm proceeding to colour up the rest of this card blank, but I'm not going all the way into the middle because we are only going to see the outside edges, but I did have the idea that I might cut out a section in the centre. So I'm using the Scattered Heart stencil that's part of the release just to colour in that centre portion. And then I did have these heart dies to hand, which are from Heffy Doodle, and I thought just cutting out a little centre panel will make for a really nice focal point, and help those images that we've coloured up stand out that little bit more. So I've cut out my little heart, and now you can see as I layer that over the top, we have that little bright area in the middle that we can use as an extra focal point. And when I was working on the layout, moving things around, testing things out, I thought actually our I Believe in You sentiment fits perfectly within that heart, and we can have our little unicorn flying over the top of that and flying over the rainbow, and that'll make for a really nice layout. So I proceeded to add my sentiment to my stamping platform, using some of my VersaFine Onyx Black ink to stamp that up. And now I'm just creating my card blank here because, again, we've gone slightly larger than an A6 card base here because that's the size of the cover plate die that we've used. So I'm just trimming down a larger card blank to fit around our focal panel that we've created. Throwing lots of lovely liquid glue onto the back of our coloured piece of cardstock, and then we can now fit our panel on the back of that. So I'm just going to add loads of these rectangles of foam pads all over the back. Again, we don't want to leave any gaps really, because we don't want this to sag and fall when we're posting it, or when it's being opened. You know, there's nothing worse than a saggy card base, I don't think. So lots and lots of tape on there, and then we're just going to use our poker tool just to remove all of those bits. Once all the backing paper has been removed, I can line that up over the top of our card base, and that sentiment sits perfectly within that heart. And now we can add our little characters. So again, I just wanted to add a bit of dimension. So I've chosen some of these square foam pads, which are have a really nice bit of dimension. I think they're 3mm in depth, and they will just really make those characters really pop out. And it looks like he's leaping over the heart, which I just think is really cute. Again, some more of those foam pads all over our little rainbow and those clouds. Pop off all of those little backing pieces, and then we'll just adhere that underneath the heart there. So for a little extra touch, I've just added some of my Jelly Roll pen, just some highlights along the rainbow and along the mane for the unicorn, and then a little bit of my Wink of Stella pen just to add some shimmer to our clouds and to the mane of the unicorn. Now, I did want to add some white Nuvo drops. And you can see me just attempting one here, but it really wasn't flowing very well, and I was only getting very small droplets, and then it was coming out in a, I suppose, in a weird, it wasn't working for me anyway. And I was really worried I was going to just end up with a big splodge all over my project. So I wiped those up, and I moved to the clear Nuvo drops. I love these. I love the clear drop, because although it adds an extra little bit of shimmer and a bit of gloss and dimension, you can still see the colour of your project through it. So it works really, really well. And actually, in the end, I think that was probably the best option. So that's the finished card. And like I say, you can't really see the shimmer on screen, so I've done a quick little video just to try and show you some of that shimmer in person. It's just so stunning, and was really, really fun card to make. A total experiment in terms of the watercolour background, but I really love how it turned out, so it's definitely something that I'll be trying again. So that was the 2 cards that I had planned, and that's what we did as part of the live. But I did have some bits left over, so I did have another of these panels that I'd cut out, because I had prepared, like I say, for the Create and Craft show. I did have extra unicorns and an extra rainbow, and we did think, oh, this will make a really, really nice card. So I decided to make another one, and this was the card that I decided to make. Because I didn't film making this final card, I've just shown you here some of the items that I used to make it. So I used 2 different shades of gold cardstock. I used some vellum, our Hugged Sentiment die, the Scattered Hearts cover plate die, and our Unicorn in Training stamps and dies, as well as the heart die that we'd used in the previous demonstration. So like I say, I already had that Scattered Hearts cover plate die already completed. I laid that over the paler gold cardstock, cut my heart from some vellum, and then I cut my sentiment using the brighter gold cardstock. I then layered the inlay sentiment die with white cardstock over the top, added that to my vellum heart shape die cut, popped that in the middle of my card base, and then added the 2 previously coloured unicorn and rainbow images I had. So this was a really, really quick and simple card to put together, because a lot of the elements I already had, just a few extra bits of die cuts with the vellum and the sentiment, and this is such a sweet card to send to someone just to make them smile. So here are some more images of the cards that we made today. I really do hope you enjoyed the tutorial today and the different techniques that we tried, a few different cards to inspire you, and yeah, I hope that you enjoyed them as much as I enjoyed making them. Thanks so much for watching. It really has been a pleasure. If you did enjoy our video today, then please do like and subscribe to the channel, and please do remember to join us for our Facebook Lives every Thursday at 8:15. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again real soon.